my handwriting. Yeah, losing a good one there. You feeling all right? Okay. No problem. I'm sorry. Alrighty then. Cindy Marks and Tom. Mike. Mike. Should I have texted them? I know, he'll do a good job. I feel like I should do more. It's unusual. Well, it's earlier than it's usually. We do this stuff too. Oh. Is that Angie? Oh, it's Angie. She's great. She has send me. You've got a spot too. Oh, you signed the mayor's thing. Okay. That's hilarious. Hey, how are you? Good to see you, Chris. What's new?
Rose is one of the most competent people I've ever interacted with in general. Yeah, we didn't have audience. She was curious. I mentioned you and Tom that you guys work in the field. Yeah, because I think we don't want to do like some, we don't want to like lease our roof space. We want to like, yeah. And that's where you get the real bang for your buck, not the weird. Yeah.
Is there any other problems that I need to know about? Oh. Huh.
You just need one more member to have a quorum, so and we'll get started. How are you? Good.
See, once they got to U7, there was
Need a minute, Cindy?
I didn't know what that meant.
You want? Do you need a minute?
I just know. I know basketball. I can coach it. That's about it, though. Attack. Will Ferrell, yeah. Isn't like Mike Ditka's father-in-law or something?
All right, we have just a half an hour here, so I want to get things rolling. We have myself and Councilmember Marks present, which is a majority of the committee, and we expect Mr. Bullock here shortly. We'll go ahead and get things rolling. It's 5:35, and this is the Public Works and Sustainability Committee meeting. And tonight on our agenda, we have just one item, I believe, and that is Ordinance 824. This ordinance effectively changes our fee structure, pulls it out of our codified ordinances, changes it, and puts it into the hands of the administration to execute that. And looking forward to this presentation. And thank you, members of the Public Works Department, who are here to present this today. I'll just go ahead and turn it over to you. And actually, before we do that, I was reminded we have two sets of minutes, actually, from September 11th and September 25th of 2023, quite a while back. So without objection, those will be approved, and hearing no objection from the committee, those minutes will stand approved. Thank you. Chris Gordon, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and take it away. Thank you again for being here, and walk us through this presentation, and then we may have some questions after for you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me, Councilwoman Marks, and Councilman Rader, much appreciated. So we'll go ahead and get right into this of the refuse and recycling rules and fees. Bear with me as I'm doing both my laptop and the screen. So the agenda and the layout of the PowerPoint presentation that I do have is we're going to start with the current rules and fees, why the Public Works Department feels these rules and fees are ineffective, what some other organizations around the area's fees and rules are, the proposed new rules and fees, the benefits to the new rules and fees, and then some frequently asked questions. So the current rules and regulations, to summarize, again, I'm not going to get into the nuts and crannies of the exact wording, but residents may bring refuse from their residency with their own vehicle without charge. And that is if they follow the personal vehicle criteria, excuse me, or satisfactory evidence determined by the Public Works Director, his designee. Certainly, I am not down there on a day-to-day basis, so I allow both Glenn Blake and Marie Kirksky, who worked down at the Refuse Center, to operate in my behalf as my designee. Contractors are responsible for their own debris disposal, and residents may put construction debris out for normal collection day. A 50-pound weight limit applies to all bundles and bags. So what we encourage the residents of Lakewood to do is, when in doubt, put it out at your curb, and we will certainly service it. So the current rules that the charges may be applied to the contractors, as you can see across the board here, you have automobiles, trailers, trucks, vans, dump trucks, rental trucks, and you can see the fee goes from basically a $30 fee across the board to an $80 fee. And the charges may be applied to contractors. And as well as that, residents who use a vehicle that does not meet the vehicle criteria or satisfactory evidence may be charged. And these fees have been in place for a significant amount of time, and we certainly are looking to update those fees with the time that we're in today. So why these rules are ineffective? So the center has continuously, the new Refuse and Recycling Center has continuously seen what I like to call frequent flyers, who to our judgment abuse the system by dropping off bulk construction debris. The current rules and fees do not prevent frequent flyers and this pattern of abuse who drop off bulk construction debris. And it does not prevent people who borrow vehicles for repeated drop-off. And due to the fact that Lakewood does not have a truck scale, we cannot weigh per ton as some surrounding communities do. You have to pretty much have a set fee in place and must issue fees per vehicle, as I just said. And this can cause a strain on the resources at the center. Oops. So the new rules and fees will help to reduce those who I like to say abuse the system. What we want the new refuse and recycling facility to be is to be a facility that is set in place for the residents of Lakewood. That's what I want to stress, that this is for residents of Lakewood, not contractors, not those potentially from surrounding cities. We want this to be completely all about the residents of Lakewood. And the new rules will target those frequent flyers, not residents following the rules. So again, I wanted to stress that this isn't something that if every resident shows up, that every time they show up to the facility, they're going to be charged that. That's not at all what I'm certainly trying to say here. What I'm saying is that these fees would be in place as a backbone for those folks that don't want to follow the rules. The new rules will not affect resident drop-off of bulk refuse, but rather those who have a documented pattern of abuse while dropping off bulk refuse. And what I mean by that is we're not going to charge a fee to somebody on a one-time occasion. It would be a consistent pattern of abuse. So it would be at a set place where we feel that somebody is trying to take advantage of the system. The 30-year-old rules need to be updated. I mean, they've been in place for a while. In the new rules, should any fees be issued, proper record documentation by the Refuse Department noting a pattern of abuse will be logged to provide evidence for charging the fees. So again, it's not going to just be we're going to pick a random person and charge them these fees. We will make sure that proper documentation is in place to provide evidence needed should you have to assess the fees. So what we found was is that other organizations in the area, what they were doing as well. So Boyus Construction charges a $65 minimum on construction debris drop-off. The Ridge Road and Car Center, residents may drop off bulk waste free of charge only 4 times per year. Shaker Heights has no drop-off during the week, and residents can drop off 1 Saturday per quarter free of charge. Rocky River, we found that citizens may dump municipal waste free of charge. However, no commercial waste was allowed. No landscapers were permitted to dump either. Cleveland Heights had limited amount of construction material collected. University Heights, no drop-off facility, and Akron, no drop-off facility. So again, we just wanted to show those as an example for everybody here. So the benefits to the new fees, it goes back to what I spoke about before, which is preventing the frequent flyers who abuse the system. Again, I know I've stressed this enough that we just want to have something to fall back on should we find that certain individuals are abusing the system. We want to focus on contractors, not the residents. I do not want this facility to turn into a dumping ground for contractors. Plain and simple, I want to keep it as a residential facility. Residents can still leave items on the tree lawn. So again, should a resident come in or should a resident call, we always encourage them that they can leave things on the tree lawn, which we have found that way works as well when dealing with potential people outside the city or contractors, in that the items can be left on the tree lawn. And residents can still drop off bulk waste free of charge. As I said, we're not going to be charging residents when they come to the facility. And the last point is just the ability to charge fees if needed. Again, we want these fees as a backbone. If we need to go to them where we find patterns of abuse, we have that ability. And we will have documentation before enforcing the fees. So frequently asked questions, will this prevent residents from dropping off bulk waste? Plain and simple, no. Residents can still drop off bulk waste free of charge if they follow the specific rules and instructions. Will this affect recycling? No. And who will have to pay the new fees would be people who have been documented abusing the system, again. So that's pretty much it at this point. I can take any questions, but again, I just wanted to stress the importance of us wanting to keep the new facility for the residents of Lakewood. I don't want this to be a contractor dumping ground. I don't want, unfortunately, contractors, whether they're from Lakewood, whether they're from surrounding communities, Rocky River, Cleveland, wherever, I certainly do not want anybody to be able to charge somebody to dispose of items and then drop them off at the Lakewood facility for free. I don't want that. And I want to avoid that at all costs. And again, I want to stress the importance that this isn't something that we're just going to implement right off the go. We will allow the patterns of abuse to occur, and then we will address accordingly. Great. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Director. I can say for myself, we're certainly aligned on mission here, focusing on residents first and limiting, if not eliminating, any of that. So thank you, laudable goals here. One thing that I do want to get into a little bit is maybe some scenarios, just to kind of clarify in my head kind of what happens when somebody comes to the refuse facility and get a sense for how it works now and how it might work under this new system. In fact, we got a message to the council office just this week, somebody, and this might be a situation that a gentleman was perfectly nice, perfectly amenable and happy, and I think he was glad he called ahead so we could kind of figure it out. but you know, he was taking some bulk things to the refuse facility for his elderly mother who's disabled, who couldn't easily get in and out of the house. He's not a resident himself. Thus, I think he was, at the time I got the message, he was unable to drop off his things. Maybe that's what worked out, or I don't know. What would happen under the old system, I guess, that would prevent somebody from bringing refuse for, let's say, a disabled resident who doesn't have a car? You know, would they have to bring that person with them in order to have that waste disposed of? And would this new system sort of help somehow in making sure that that person, a resident, garbage from their house, make sure that they could dispose of it properly at the facility?
So ironically, I've been down at the facility and answered this exact type of call. And what I have encouraged residents to do is, if they are going to be sending up somebody, a grandson, a son, a family member, a contractor, whoever, is to just send them with the proper documentation needed, whether it's a utility bill, something along those lines that shows that you're working with that specific person. We need some type of documentation. Unfortunately, it can't just be a contractor shows up and says, I'm doing work at, 17345 Detroit, and here I am. We need proper documentation showing that they're working with that homeowner. I talked to the one elderly woman on the phone. She said he's here working for me, and I said, great. Can you please give him some type of bill? I don't care what it is that shows that he's working with you, or some type of, whether you ride with him or something.
Yeah.
So we're just trying again to filter all that out as best we can.
And so the old system and the new system work similarly in that you're going to be able to
Yes.
make those decisions on a case-by-case basis, even working with your council members as you do so diligently. All right, so that I appreciate that note.
Yes.
Secondly, I guess explain what happens when somebody shows up that does not, is unable to show proof of residence. When does the fee come into effect, and when do you tell somebody that they can't drop off here because they're simply ineligible? We know you work from Cleveland, or you're from Cleveland. This is not Lakewood associated or affiliated. Under no circumstance can you bring your garbage here, or would you charge them? When would the fee apply, and when would a pure refusal happen?
So the fee would apply as once we've seen a consistent pattern of abuse. And it gets to that point, it'll be, again, on a case-by-case basis. But normally, again, we just want these fees as a backbone. Normally, we would just say, we're not going to accept that here. You need to take it somewhere else. But again, with any good rules that are in place, you're always going to find people that are able to locate loopholes and maybe to do whatever is needed to get done to show that they're residents of Lakewood or whatever on a consistent basis. What we have found is, in certain situations, that potential contractors say, oh, I'm redoing a house here in Lakewood. Okay, great. And then they're coming up consistently, and then months and months later, they're still coming up, bringing up the same items. I don't really know of a house in Lakewood that has 12 bathrooms, but I'm just using that as an example, where it just kind of makes you question what's going on. So again, the fees would be a backbone in the case that somebody has proper documentation, but they've consistently shown a pattern of abuse.
And if they don't have any documentation, then you tell them, this is, simply have to go somewhere else.
And the easiest way we handle those types of situations is you can put it on the tree lawn.
Yeah.
You can put it on the tree lawn, and we'll take care of it for you.
Yeah.
And we have found that works best, and we're getting through it.
Yeah, I've certainly exercised my privileges and put quite a lot of stuff on my tree line, so I appreciate it over the years. I'll stop there. I might have some more questions, but members of the committee? Yes.
Thanks, Director Gordon. If you can clarify for me, so if in the situation if a contractor is doing work at a home, he can take the debris from the home and put it on the tree lawn, and that's an appropriate way to get rid of his debris, correct?
Yes, he can. That's up to the homeowner's discretion. And again, there's rules and regulations with what can and can't be put on the tree lawn as well. So we want to make sure with whatever's getting put on the tree lawn is following the rules and regulations that we have on the website. So yes, because that's up to the discretion of the homeowner. But again, I certainly don't want folks to be charged for a disposal from a contractor that then proceeds to take it to the Lakewood facility for free.
I understand what you're saying. That wasn't clear to me. So contractors will add a dump charge to a job, then take it to Lakewood and dump it for free, and not refund the homeowner for that fee.
That could very well be the case.
Okay. And I think that's important information to let people know, because I wouldn't know that unless I was here at this meeting. So I appreciate that information. And as far as the abuse is concerned, I'm sure that your people at the refuse department are familiar with the contractors, and they know if they keep coming back, and they know who the perpetrators are.
Yes.
I'm sure. Well, and I think having these fees as a necessary backup, it's important. I think it's important for the contractors to know that the city means business. And it's important that the residents understand, what their liability is if they're having construction work done. And I know that if I'm cleaning up an area, I try to put it in anything that's being thrown out in the bags that are appropriate for refuse to pick up. But I think this is great information. I'm glad you're looking at these fees to bring us up to, current standards. So thanks for all the work you do. I think the refuse department does a phenomenal job, and I love the new refuse center. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Public Works Director Gordon, for that overview. A couple questions and comments, and I've, just as a resident before I was on council, experienced, some of the kind of grayness of the rule, right? I think my dad, has a truck. I don't have a truck, so we were doing some, light work in the house and brought it up there, and they kind of told me I had one free ability to go on his car because I could show my ID, but the truck wasn't registered to me. So I understand, and I get the fact that you're going to need discretion, your staff and Glenn are going to need discretion to carry these rules out. The question I have is do these fees, you talked about how they're in line with the rest of the area, or even, we allow things that some of the rest of the area doesn't allow. Does this cover the city's cost for that waste? Or are we, where are we at?
So due to the fact that we don't have a truck scale, we can't really weigh it per ton. So we kind of did some research, I did, behind the scenes on how much could be potentially put in each vehicle. And then, looking at a price per ton type of rate. I would certainly be all in favor of the fees being higher, but understanding that we also want to set the precedence here and not have it to where it's seen as absurd. So I try to just find that common ground to where we are necessarily above others, to where it couldn't just be a dumping ground, but also not to the point of if somebody abuses the system and then learns that it just completely discourages somebody from coming back.
Yeah, I guess what my larger question is, do you think we're covering our costs for these frequent flyers with the fees that you're proposing in this?
I would, but again, I took a very conservative approach with these numbers, so I am all in favor of them being higher if needed.
Okay, and I appreciate that. Secondly, can you explain the system? I know staff, just observes these people. They probably know these people. Do you have is there a computer system? How do you do that so that we know that you guys are catching the frequent flyers and the folks that are abusing the system?
Yeah, so with the new refuse and recycling facility, we scan IDs and we have a computer system, so we have everything documented. Also, when we're not using the computer system, we have sign-in sheets that we then load into the computer. So you would see the same name consistently and things of that nature. And also, we make residents fill out exactly what they're dropping off and things of that nature. So we would know, okay, this person has come these many weeks in a row dropping off this type of material, and we're, 3 or 4 months into it and they're still bringing the same thing. This seems to be a little pattern. And we would obviously have a conversation first and see what's going on and then go from there.
Okay, yeah, thank you, and I, applaud the, sometimes I look at certain sections of our code and it's quite prescriptive. And sometimes I look at it and it's pretty broad, and I think that in this area, having some discretion, right, not setting the hours in the code, that kind of thing, is a good thing. But explain the process. Let's say you evaluate these fees, you want to change them a little bit. Maybe you go down, maybe you go up. How does that process going to work under this new proposed ordinance?
So to my knowledge, I would have to get clarity from the law department, but I think I would have to come back again to whether it's raise those fees or bring the fees down. I would have to ask our law department on that.
I don't have the, excuse me, thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have the resolution ordinance in front of me. I know Ms. Swallow worked on it. I recalled a provision that would allow the department head to set those fees. I may be mistaken, but we can find that out and report back.
Yeah, I think what you're honing in on is it refers to 91101D of this chapter, which says, the director shall from time to time establish a schedule of rates and collection user fees for the collection and disposal of refuse by filing said schedule with the clerk of council. If the council fails to reject said schedule within 60 days, the schedule becomes effective. So I guess in the future, I just ask the clerk to put that into communication to council so we can, I don't see us objecting, but at least we can be made aware of it.
Thank you. Any comments from committee members or Mr. Wolf?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Sorry for arriving late. I did have the chance to review the PowerPoint slide deck before arriving. Just a couple questions. So, in no particular order, I think there's in Section 9, in the proposed changes to Section 91101, we have a numbering issue or section numbering issue there that maybe the attorneys here could help us with. The proposal is to eliminate 91101A, and then we have B, C, and D, and then the section that Councilman Baker just referred to refers back to 91101D. I think the numbering or the lettering should be updated to A, B, and C, correct? And then we'd amend the other section to refer to 91101C. So maybe, Mr. Chair, unless I'm seeing that incorrectly, Law Director or Mr. Gordon, we can clean that up before we vote on this.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think the way to do it is either just put A and then put repealed in parentheses, or renumber the section like you suggested.
Okay. Any preference from the Law Department?
Thank you, Councilman. No preference, but we will work it up consistent with these comments and give you a substitute version. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize, and so
why
these are
don't
helpful
we,
comments.
Why don't we just make a motion to insert in place of the stricken previous section A, we insert instead A and then the word repealed. So I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion's made. I'll second. Good. Motion's made and second. Any further comment on that motion? Seems to make sense to me. And is that clear enough, Director?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good.
It's clear.
All right. Hearing no objection, that'll stand approved.
So that's just a ministerial one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the second thing, I'm kind of just going through the ordinance here. Personal vehicle means a car, SUV, van, or pickup. SUV is, my family has two light SUVs, which are essentially glorified cars. They have the cargo space of a Chevy Chevette or something, but they're tall because that's what, you can't buy as many cars that used to be a car anymore. I don't think we have to put this in the ordinance, but would the director implement the rule or implement the procedures at the drop-off facility such that a small SUV is a car in the fee structure? Because I think what you're driving at here is volume, carrying capacity, so how much material is delivered, right?
Sorry. Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
we certainly don't have any issue with that. And we would work on a case-by-case basis, you know.
So
Again, I mean, if you.
think that could just appear on a form that you
Sure.
have, you know.
Yep.
Here's our fee schedule, asterisks at the bottom, here's what these terms mean, or here's how the department is
Sure.
interpreting these things, you know, so that way you don't have to try to keep up with the auto industry on every twist and turn that it makes in its new vehicles on an ongoing basis. But I just thought I'd make that comment. Then secondly, okay, so the current rules are that a contractor can use the facility if it's for a Lakewood-related job. We're proposing to change that, right? So that the contractor just they have to go somewhere else, so they have to pay, right?
Again, if they're doing work in Lakewood and they can follow the necessary rules and regulations and they can provide the proper identification when they come up
Yep.
with, you know, another resident of Lakewood, we would certainly accept their material. Now, again, we wouldn't be accepting that on a day-to-day basis and continuously for weeks on end to where we saw a pattern of abuse that were necessarily seen as the contractor's dumping grounds. But if it was, you know, here and there, sure. And then we also don't want.
The proper procedure would really be that the
Correct.
contractor has his or her own non-residential
Exactly.
place. So I just got my porch done. It's actually not done yet still. Needs to be. Don't tell Chris Parmalee. They hauled off
Correct.
not all that much, but it was a good pickup bed truck worth of material. I didn't ask them where they sent it. They didn't call in a line item into my contract either. You know, reputable contractor, I'm pleased, but they really should be finding some other location that's not the Lakewood Refuge Center. If they did show up, though, even under this new ordinance, they might be able to use that new facility.
Now, again, if they show up with a resident of
was my
Lakewood,
house.
if they show up with you and you're saying, hey, you know, this person, you know, is with me, and they're going to perform a drop-off, and we find that the necessary material is with the rules and within the rules and regulations of the facility, we're certainly not going to turn them away and have that resident be upset that they're, you know, performing a drop-off with a contractor working at their home. What we're trying to ultimately avoid is that just being a continuous pattern.
Sure.
And we also don't want potential contractors that live in Lakewood, I must say, doing jobs outside of Lakewood and then bringing the material to the facility as a drop-off as well.
So there's going to be some ability to do essentially one courtesy load.
Sure.
And after that, the professionals have to have a professional disposal facility. And let me just be naive. When you get the material, what happens to it? And we put it in a truck and it gets shipped somewhere?
It all depends on what it is.
Lumber?
Well, we have
concrete.
at the facility right now, we don't have our construction dumpsters back, but normally we have a construction dumpster that we would put those types of materials in to avoid damage to the trucks and things of that nature and unnecessary work with the trucks. And that's a whole nother reason that we certainly don't, if you noticed within here, I got rid of like dump trucks, trailers, things of that nature. We don't want that. I don't want these dumpsters to be filled up, as Councilman Baker said, when it comes to cost associated. I don't want to be continuously paying for dumpsters to come in to get rid of these materials.
So presumably, your division is talking to the building and housing department so that when they're issuing permits, they're
Exactly.
instructing the contractors, here's the rules of the road here. Does that make sense?
Correct. So normally what we do is if a contractor comes in, as Glenn just reminded me, we will look to see if a permit was pulled and things of that nature, to know that they're working in Lakewood at Councilman Bullock's house, doing a front porch that hopefully Chris Parmalee doesn't know about. You know, things of that
He knows
nature.
about it, it just was, it's dithering. So.
You know, things of that nature. We would look to make sure a permit was pulled. We're going to do all of the necessary documentation on our end. And again, we just want this as a backbone in the case it's ever needed. It may never be needed. Let's hope it's not. But we just want it there in the case it ever is.
Okay, so the point, all right, and I'll let this go. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So we'll collect the material in various trucks or dumpsters, and then we have to pay per
Exactly.
container to go off-site. That's a hard expense to us. If I'm pulling a permit to do a home job, then perhaps I could use the facility because I'm not hiring somebody from the outside.
Exactly. Yes,
But
correct.
I won't do that because that would take way too long.
Again, I just want to stress the importance that we want to keep this as a residential facility and just to avoid it being a contractor drop-off.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think that's about it. And then, is this enough of a fee deterrent? What if I just pay the cost of business if it's cheaper for me to drop it off with Glenn instead of go to the proper spot? Maybe I just do that.
That's a fair remark. Again,
I have no
as I said to
sense myself
Councilman
in the market.
Baker, it was a very thin line of, where do I feel Lakewood is best suited? To where we're not quote-unquote taking advantage, but also we're trying to, create that line of where we want to be. Again, as I said before, I wouldn't have any pushback with the fees being higher to encourage it even more. But also, we are just trying to establish something right now that was, as Councilman Baker and I talked about, that met our needs. But again, I mean, it's fair to say that the cost of disposal will continue to rise. Unfortunately, the fees that we had before weren't updated in 30 years.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add is, so when some years ago we calculated the fee, it's not a fine, it's a fee as a reimbursement of administrative costs. We're not penalizing people in a criminal fine sense, which is, I think, a distinction that the law department will appreciate because it's a whole different basis for potentially charging somebody. But when we did the lawn mowing during warm summer months, the mitigation of high grass and weeds, City of Lakewood calculated how much it costs us to do that service, because that's not our job. We don't want to do that job, and we charge the property owner if they're truant on maintaining the high grass and weeds, and we'll do it, and they'll get a bill. And we're charging not a market rate, we're above market rate. And the answer to that is we don't want to be a lawn mowing service. And when you add it up, we're not set up to be the least cost lawn mowing service. So I think there may be a conversation that you could have with the law department to calculate the staff time, not just the straight disposal fees, but all of the personnel hours, and prorate that, and you can incorporate that into the fee, because it sounds like we're not interested in doing this at cost. What we're trying to do is recapture all of our costs and really direct commercial refuse where it belongs, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just writing a note based off what you and Councilman Baker were saying. Yes, that's correct. We're certainly not looking to make money. We're looking to just defer the costs that are needed.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. The one additional comment I have kind of follows on what Councilman Baker was mentioned, in that moving this schedule out of the fee schedule out of the ordinance and into, somewhere that is ostensibly a little bit less visibility than being like intercodified ordinances. It would just, in my mind, I just want to make sure that we're also publishing those fees, making them very public, communicating what's happening. So what's the plan to get the word out about this and to update the website and communicate the changes?
So ever since we opened a new refuse and recycling facility, we've had the rules and regulations available when people pull up to the window. And we've worked with residents in regards to what we will accept and what we won't accept and things of that nature. We wanted to make sure we got all this in place before we did any type of communication. I want to do this all at one time and not in different increments. But again, the way that we have found that is working best right now is for when folks come to the facility, we let them know what's going on. and things of that nature, and it's had a really, really good outcome.
Good.
So that's at least our plan at this point.
Yeah, deterrence work best when people know they're there. So I certainly appreciate all the work and getting the word out. And that's about it for me. Any other questions from council while we were having this discussion up here? Good thoughts. Again, whenever we have these changes where we're moving things out of ordinances and into the administrative policy, it's always good to give a good thorough hearing. So I really do, again, appreciate you taking the time. And it makes perfect sense. I think we're very much aligned on missions. And thank you for, I can't wait to get down there. I have to get down there one of these days, the brand new facility. I have not even seen it since it was in construction. So got to come visit. So, well, if there's no other comment, I think we can defer this until we have a version that's with the update. Is the administration needing this done on a more timely basis than perhaps the second meeting in May?
No, I'm fine with that. What we were hoping was to move forward with the fees if possible at the beginning of June.
Okay.
So
Well-
we'd like to get it out there before construction season picks up even more over the summer months.
What we could do is refer it out to the meeting. I think that's where you're going to go there, Councilman. And then just await a substitute and have a quick floor discussion and an amendment made on the floor or a substitute made on the floor by the council president. And that way we wouldn't have to do this meeting again. We can avoid that because we would just be a non-substantive type change. Does that make sense, Law Director?
Sure does, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so then I will go ahead and move that we refer this ordinance, I think it's 8/24, to the council at an appropriate time when we have the substitute for substitution and then adoption as amended.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Aye. We have everybody in favor. That motion passes. Brings us to the end of the meeting. Any other business? Hearing none, our meeting's adjourned. I think the next up will be housing, planning, and development here at 6:30.
And we don't, so what I said was.
Good evening, everyone. Let's get the meeting underway for the Housing Planning and Development Committee, given the fact that we are already a little late in starting. It is the May 6, 2024 meeting. We have at the top of our agenda 2 sets of minutes to consider approval for. First, the March 25 meeting of the Housing Planning and Development Committee. And is Mr. Baker, Mr. Shackner to remind?
So moved.
Thank you. I'll second that motion. Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes have it. Second, we have the minutes for the April 22nd joint special meeting of the Housing Planning and Development Committee and the Planning Commission. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it. Okay, so that brings us to the top of the legislative agenda tonight. So we've got 3 matters on 2 topics. Ordinances 41, 2023, and 42, 2023 are a pair of proposed ordinances that would permit medical and adult use marijuana dispensaries and define permitted uses in various districts in the city. And then the third item is continued discussion of a resolution to approve adoption of a Madison Park Master Plan. Why don't we dive in with the 41 with the 2 marijuana ordinances? And I understand, so the administration, we may have the departments of law or planning to present, but we'll start with the Department of Law, or we'll lead. Before we jump in, I did want to ask a colleague, Councilman Shackner, who was the lead sponsor of these legislation, to frame up for us a policy choice or decision that our community can make via city council action, just so that that's daylighted along with everything else we're going to discuss. Mr. Shackner, could you do that just concisely?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Really, these 2 ordinances, they alter, prior to being submitted to the Planning Commission, they alter our zoning code and a portion of our code that has to do with licensing to pretty much allow recreational sales the same way that medical sales are overseen here in Lakewood, and the same areas that medical sales are allowed here in Lakewood. The one thing well, 2 things. Well, the one policy choice I think there is within this, besides, because a lot of it is just what we have now, just altering it slightly to allow for recreational marijuana in addition to medical marijuana, is that we currently have a prohibition on cultivators and processors of marijuana here in Lakewood. I think past discussion was that could be in industrial use or in a industrial zone, which would require further changes to our zoning code. But that's really the choice that's out there. Do we want to continue to prohibit cultivators and processors, or do we want to allow those businesses in the appropriate areas of the city?
Okay, and is there a specific section, or is it the proposed language is silent on that?
I'd have to find it again.
Okay, if you don't mind flagging that for us as we proceed. And then, Mr. Rader, you were saying before the state law would apply. Can you make that comment just for the record?
Yeah, sure. I was just noting to the chair that once the state enacts its sets of rules, it's something that we could then reinvestigate later to figure out how, because we don't know exactly how the states, there's several proposals that are pending, and there are probably more that'll be amended and entered into, subcommittees and sub-bills. So moving forward with what's best for Lakewood now, I think would be something that, I'm in favor of. That's all I was saying.
Okay, I found it.
Go ahead, Mr. Shackner.
So it's ordinance 77904, which is prohibition on certain marijuana operations. So the amended version now says no person shall operate a marijuana cultivator or processor in the city, which whoever violates the section shall be guilty of a misdemeanor of the 1st degree. So the decision is, do we want to continue that prohibition here in Lakewood, or do we want to permit cultivation and processing?
Okay, and the current draft legislation is really geared towards dispensaries. So if the answer to your point were yes, we wanted to consider these new business categories, we might be significantly amending or expanding this proposed legislation.
Well, yeah, we would, if we want to have some sort of licensing regime for cultivators and processors, we would need
New legislative
yes,
language,
that-
okay.
That would be a whole other thing.
Okay, maybe I'm being, approaching this like a law professor, just trying to be intellectually consistent. So thank you to the council members for humoring my discussion here, but it's helpful to me to clarify what it is that we're talking about. And I think Mr. Rader's point, your point is the state is still slowly struggling to meet its own timelines for clarifying what the rules of the road are to the various sections of the new state referendum passed policy, which is to allow adult recreational use. And even if today the answer is no, our city could revisit in the future if we wanted to, or maybe we just say, no, that's not for us. And your point is that we may have clearer information in the reasonably near future from the state that we don't have today.
Yeah, I would just amend that slightly, but yeah, that's for the most part correct. I don't know about near future. I don't know how much is going to be done even in this calendar year on this. So I think it's prudent for Lakewood to do what's best for us while these laws are going to be coming into effect. So if that is to move forward with removing the prohibition, maybe that's something we should consider doing. And the state may or may not act this year. If I had to guess, it's probably going to be longer than shorter. That we're going to have to wait for more guidance from the state.
Okay, that's some helpful preliminary discussion. I don't know if the law department has, or the planning department has actually, in your work to date, entered into those questions of business activity beyond dispensaries. I'm guessing the answer is probably not, and that we're here today to talk about dispensaries. Is that right?
That is correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. Any other comments, council members, or can we invite the administration to talk? You have anything, Mr. Baker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think to the earlier point between you and Councilman Scheckner about cultivating or processor, I think we'd have to just create a whole new section of the code to handle that. So I think right now we have before us, we have current operators that may get a license to sell adult use, and it may be happening quickly, so we should handle that. And then, but I'd be interested in working with you all or the administration to think about cultivation or processing, which is an entirely different use. But so stick a pin in that.
Fair enough. Any other comments or points? Okay, and I'll just, for myself, I don't know that I have an informed opinion. If the city were to consider doing that, my thought would be we'd want to research it carefully, understand the implications, understand the zoning and business use. So probably not prepared for that today. We'd need to think it through carefully. And, you know, I approach it with an open mind. But anyway, helpful preliminary discussion. So with that, Mr. Vargo or Mayor George or whoever would like to take the lead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Law Department has identified some key issues that we want to point out to the committee that will facilitate our drafting. We would anticipate after this meeting presenting to the committee within 5 to 7 days substitute versions of the ordinances. So I'll go ahead and do that. After I identify these issues, I'll try to present them as neutrally as possible. Ms. Swallow will then report on recommendations received from the Planning Commission on certain of these issues and the basis for those recommendations, which may be informative to the committee.
And Mr. Vargo, before we go further, can I interject? So first of all, are you about to talk about 41-2023 or 42 or both?
Both at the
Okay.
same time. The issues overlap.
Okay, wonderful. And you're going to help us keep track of what lines we're looking at, please. And then can I also just get an update on the Planning Commission status? So they've met and they've held a vote, is that correct?
Yes, Planning Commission met last Thursday evening and made essentially 3 recommendations to, I don't know which ordinance number it is, but the ordinance that amends the zoning code. And I don't know if you want me to go through those before.
Not
he
right
goes
now,
through the
just
set of issues.
Have they concluded their work, or they're still?
Correct. Yep, they've
Okay.
referred it out back to council. You will get a formal report, but I thought it was important to bring
Very good.
that information tonight
Absolutely.
for discussion purposes.
Okay, that answered my question. All right, Mr. Vargo, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first issue to be discussed is the licensing structure that the city set up with respect to medical dispensaries. Do we have a similar licensing regime for adult use? Do we maintain the one for medical? Our research looking into this, it is objective that this is a very highly regulated industry and will be by the Division of Cannabis. Just for example, the division is going to regulate the dispensaries. They regulate the financial responsibility of the owners and operators, whether they're across ownership among dispensaries and with cultivators and processors. They regulate how the change of ownership occurs and transpires. They address waste disposal, security within the facility, outside of the facility, security cameras inside and out, alarm systems, how the interior spacing goes, certain accommodations for medical use patients vis-a-vis adult use, and various points of sale items are regulated by the division. Those are examples of how actively regulated this industry will be in Ohio, the adult use. Very comprehensive, and the regulator in the state is dedicated to this industry, unlike our building department, unlike our police, that have to look at various industries and has to be an expert on so many things. The Division of Cannabis can focus, will focus, and based on the regulations to date, shows that this will be very actively regulated. Given that active regulation, one consideration is whether we go forward with regulation by our building code, our inspectors. What can our inspectors really add to that comprehensive system of regulation? Is it an unnecessary layer of burden for the city and the industry? What does it add? Related to that, for your consideration, is the issue of fees. Now, fees can be very controversial, but perhaps not once we keep it in perspective with the facts. Under the statute authorizing adult use, the dispensaries will be assessed a 10% excise tax. What that means is 10% on gross sales will be taxed by the state. The first dollar of gross sales is subject to that 10% tax. Under the system set up by the state of Ohio in the statute, 36% of that revenue, of that excise tax received, will go to the municipality that houses the particular dispensary, adult use dispensary. So all of that means is 3.6% of every dollar spent in the adult use is expected to be returned to the city of Lakewood, which is a significant gross receipt. When we compare that to what the city did with respect to medical dispensaries originally, the fee structure was a fixed fee, as you know, of $25,000. But then originally it was an added 1.5% of gross receipts above a threshold of $1.5 million. That's just perspective, because what the state statute provides for Lakewood now is, in essence, more than 2.5 times the amount that we sought to tax medical use dispensaries, which is telling the law department and telling the administration that that's a significant source of revenue and addresses, if not replaces, any concern the city could have with seeking fees from this operation. In addition, and very significantly, there are legal implications to assessing a fee. As many of you know, the state statute prohibits a fee or a tax being placed by the city that is, quote, not generally charged on other businesses, end quote. that is a legal challenge to the city of assessing a fee. A significant challenge, not Ms. Swallow and I would, if a fee were required, we would present it in a very colorable, defensive way. We are confident. However, that is a significant legal challenge on its face, which would take a lot of resources. When you look at the fees that we are expected to receive through the state statute and the legal prohibition on our assessing an independent fee, you put those together and you consider other policy considerations or other concerns with what our community might face. And that is, if we subject the industry to unnecessary regulation, duplicative regulation, unnecessary fees or taxes, then that has the effect, and it's been proven and it's been shown throughout the country, of elevating the viability of the black market. So you might have read anecdotally what's happened in New York. There's more black market sales of cannabis than through the legitimate dispensaries, and that's adult use authorized in New York City. So there is a concern to watch for, and that is if the industry is too burdened, it makes the black market more competitive and defeats one of the critical motivations for the legalization of adult use. So when you look at that context, it is legitimate policy to no longer have our building department and our police department engage in duplicative inspections and licensing, and very sound policy to accept the tax base, the taxes that the state has set forth in the statute, in the initiated statute, and not force additional fees and taxes to be imposed and enforced. The next issue relates to point of sale. The initiated statute allows various types of points of sale, and I indicated earlier that the Division of Cannabis regulates these, and they do. But we still have flexibility in our zoning ordinance if we wanted to make this more restrictive than otherwise allowed under the regulation. Again, Ms. Swallow's going to, on this issue, describe for you the recommendation from the Planning Commission and the reasons for those recommendations. But the examples are the state regulation allows drive-up window service. So it's a question for planning, question for you. Does the city wish to authorize drive-up window service? The state regulation also authorizes curbside pickup. Our Planning Commission has a view of both of those, and you'll hear about that from Ms. Swallow. Next issue that we have identified in the law department as issues to consider are hours of operation. Under the state regime, it is permissible for the adult use dispensary to operate within the hours of 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. We still have ability to restrict it if we so choose, but we cannot allow it beyond 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. One issue to consider is we know that there will be increased traffic with respect to this new industry. Rise Dispensary has worked with our Planning Commission on the parking lot, on expanding the facility. The one thing we can be assured of is more traffic, both foot and auto traffic, in the facilities. So one consideration is, if we know that traffic is coming, maybe it's good that we keep the time range broad to spread out the traffic, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., to make the traffic less concentrated at times. An alternative consideration is, we hear this often in meetings before council, is concern with our school children getting to school, people driving them to school They walk to school, they bike to school. Might we consider having the adult use dispensary start the day at 10 a.m. to avoid increased traffic, which we know is coming, to avoid that increased traffic during school hours? Not practical to do so at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock. We'll have to live with that increased traffic, but certainly it would be viable to consider start times that addresses and tries to plan for the school opening at 8 or 9 a.m. The medical provider side of the business could start earlier, perhaps. These are policy questions to be considered. And again, the Planning Commission has made recommendations. You'll hear about that. Finally, the last issue that we think is significant enough that we want to bring to your attention is Council has the authority to limit the number of adult use dispensaries that are permissible in the city and the geographic range. The state has prohibited adult use dispensaries from being within 1 mile of each other. And what that means is we have Rise on the east side of our city and currently on the west side. Practically that 1 mile dispersion requirement probably is going to make only 2 viable. It's geographically viable to have a third, but it may not be in an area that the Planning Commission could really make work given the increased traffic. But the geographic dispersion makes only 3 geographically possible, probably 2 viable. So we can rely on the Planning Commission to address that, or Council has the authority to limit it. We have been informed that Rise expects to close the west facility, which raises issues because Rise has been a good partner to the city. It's a publicly traded company. They have internal controls. They try to do things right. We're going to lose them on the west side. We don't know if there will be a new licensee coming in. That licensee is probably going to be adult use only, and it won't have a medical component. So that's something to consider. You have the authority to limit it to 1. You have the authority to allow the 2, and we hope the new one coming in is as good of a partner as Rise has been. The facility on the east side, as you know, is going to facilitate high volume. The parking lot is being redone, the facility is being redone. If you choose to limit it to 1, it isn't like anybody will be deprived of an opportunity to purchase because that will be a sufficient facility. Nor will it ever give anything remotely approaching monopoly rights or profits to Rise, given the intense competition they'll face from the adult use dispensaries very nearby in Cleveland, including right across from Lakewood Heights Boulevard. So I'd be glad to answer any questions now, or if you want Ms. Swallow to report on you Planning Commission's recommendations, and then we can address your questions.
Thanks, Director Vargo. I'm going to ask some clarifying questions just to make sure I heard the categories correctly. So really, in addition to Councilman Schachner's point that we could, I'm going to summarize the choice points, the decisions that we have to make on behalf of the community, if I've heard this correctly. So we're going to take off the table for the moment, or at least for this moment, this meeting, the question of other kinds of business and just focus on dispensaries. But even within dispensaries, I counted 5 and maybe 6 points. Number 1, it's all got to do with what level of regulation might we contemplate that the city would adopt and conduct for the following 6 points: inspections, taxes and fees, hours of operation, drive-through and/or curbside pickup, geographic distance limits, and we didn't talk about this, but medical license integration with recreational adult license, right? I don't know if there's, or is that just a technical? Actually, I'm a little confused on that because we've got the ability to, well, maybe you could speak to that. Is the one superseding the other or the one layering upon the other? Those questions. How does that feed into it? But did I get the summation correct? Did I miss any point you raised, Director Vargo?
You got that correct, absolutely.
Okay.
And right now, we have 2 medical facilities, as you know, medical use, and my understanding is they're applying for dual use license and expect to be licensed by mid to the 3rd week in June. I'm presuming if the west location closes and another entity comes in, we're just assuming that would be adult use only. It's just an assumption though, but it's probably based on expectations for growth in adult use.
So the state's still going to have legal authority for both medical and adult use and dual, but medical licenses may well be maxed out. So it's going to be an uncommon situation that you get a brand new medical dispensary, whereas adult use recreational is the new growth of licenses.
Yes. Answer to your first question is absolutely. The state still is licensing both. Our understanding is the dual use license is about to be processed, but adult use only has to wait. That's still in, that'll be months thereafter.
Okay.
Let me just point out.
And is that new Lakewood Heights Boulevard business on Cleveland side, is that
That's our
adult use only
understanding.
or is that medical?
Our understanding is it's adult use and it will be in Cleveland.
Okay,
But
so
it's just an
that is
understanding.
not operating yet.
Correct.
Okay, they're getting ready to open, but they haven't been granted.
Yes, but my basis for saying that is hearsay. I haven't done independent research and presumption that that's a viable market for adult use only. One other point of clarification, as we read the statutes and the regulations, if the city does not limit the number, for example, and an adult use license is granted, once granted, we have very limited ability to ever prohibit that number. So it's almost like this is a chance, and they'll be grandfathered in if they are licensed. So we can limit it to 1, but if we don't limit it to 1, and another entity that comes in and gets licensed, very difficult for us to go back on that.
And the basis for that decision is the geography, right? The definition of the limits, right?
That is correct, but the statute expressly talks about there's a window for municipalities to limit the number. Once that window is passed and a business invests in all the startup costs and the licensing and regulatory burden, once in, the state will protect them from us if we want to try to revoke our original decision.
Understood. Did you have something, Mr. Shacker, you were trying to say?
I would just say, starting off, thank you, Director Vargo. I think I brought this up at earlier meetings. I don't see a reason to have a licensing regime. It seems duplicative to me when the state already does it, and they have people that only do that stuff. And why are we further burdening our staff when the state's going to be doing it anyway? You leave it to planning and leaving to zoning and put and all the restrictions are there where they can be, where they cannot be, and I think that'll work out. I'm not too fond of restricting the number. I feel, as Director Vargo laid out, just the geography of Lakewood in general limits the number of dispensaries that can exist in Lakewood. In terms of timing, I don't know if I see, in terms of with drive-through and thing, I see them similar to how a CVS operates, with people picking up either prescriptions or the recreational products through a drive-through versus parking. and I'm sure the planning commission would have more to comment on this, and I'm sure Director Swallow will tell us if they did, but I feel like the longer, allowing for drive-throughs and allowing for a longer time period would mitigate traffic in terms of if we keep truncating the time they could operate, more people are going to come, less amount of time, it's more traffic. But I think in general, the busy times are going to be rush hour times when people are either on their way home or on their way to work, one of the two. But that's just some of the stuff laid out there.
Okay, go ahead, Councilwoman Keppel, and then we should hear from Assistant Director Swallow, but go ahead.
Thank you. And Director Vart, this may have been on your list, Councilman, but one of the questions you raised was whether to allow drive-throughs at all. Is that accurate?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So, but I believe the Eastern Rise was already putting in a drive-through for medical, or that was in the works with planning. Is that not? No? I thought they talked to us about that when we were on the tour. No? Okay. Maybe they were just getting ready to to propose it to us once this goes through. Okay, so that was my question. If we, for some reason, said no drive-throughs, but they'd already put one in for medical, would it be limited? But okay.
And good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. In fact, potentially where a drive-through could be located on that eastern location is where their deliveries and drop-offs take place, because those are very much regulated by the state, so they have to happen in a very secure fashion. So I don't want to speak for I know one of the applicants or one of the owners is here in the audience, but it would be difficult to incorporate a drive-through at that location.
Okay. Go ahead, Assistant Director Swallow. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Planning Commission had 3 recommendations. The first was to move the hours of operation into the zoning code. It's only currently listed in the business code in 779. They were in favor of keeping the hours as they are, which are 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then possibly having the ability to extend those hours in certain circumstances based on traffic, the neighborhood, noise, and the time of the week. Like maybe a Friday, Saturday night, they would be open till 11 p.m. or allow opening until 11 p.m. rather than during the weekday. They did not talk about the morning start time, though. Their second item was to allow or to limit dispensaries to the number of 3 in the city. I had our GIS tech create a map. We have a zoning map that shows under our current zoning, the state regulations and our own regulations, what lots in Lakewood would be available for a medical dispensary. And with that 1 mile radius coming in, I had them overlay that 1 mile radius on the 2 current locations, just to kind of give you a visual of what it would look like, what spaces potentially would be available, and I'd be happy to share that with everybody. But based on that and the map, they wanted to stick to 3 dispensaries, and I think part of that conversation is, right now the state is probably going to set that 1 mile radius. If they were to change that in the future, it still would prevent an overconcentration of dispensaries in Lakewood. Their final recommendation was that no drive-throughs be permitted, and they were in favor of curbside and interior kiosks. I also, currently our zoning code requires a separate conditional use for any drive-through establishment in Lakewood, which was brought about to kind of better control traffic and stacking spaces and keep traffic on the property and not out on our streets.
Okay, thank you. I have one quick question, then I want to open it up. So, and we have one member of the public who would like to comment, that we should make sure speaks. On the mechanics of how, I just need to hear it one more time. The mechanics of how the city may or may not set a total cap on the number of available dispensary licenses for adult use in combination with dual use, right? In our city, how do we do that? It sounds like we can do geography and an absolute count limit, or both. And the Planning Commission didn't necessarily recommend how we do that, but said, here's our opinion about the number. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. So if, as it seems likely, we'd have our, one or more of our existing medical businesses successfully get a dual use license, that's going to take up one of the slots and or zone, geographic zones. And then the question remains of anybody else or, and whom? And I guess that'll sort itself out down the line. That is, for fees and taxes, it's volumetric, is that right? Because under the previous, or under the current situation, I think the city has a certain flat fee per license, correct? So if, I think I heard you, Director Vargo, posit the argument that the new state law mandates or is clearly establishes a local tax share of total volume of sales, correct? And that may well supersede the amounts of what had been contemplated for the old medical licensure, right? But the question I'm driving at is, does that have any impact on 1 versus 2 versus 3 dispensaries operating in the city? Does it matter? Potentially well, we don't know, but if you have 3 grocery stores, you have more customers and more goods that get sold as opposed to 1 super grocery store, right? But maybe you have a big enough super grocery store and it does work out to be the same.
Yes. The fee, obviously, or the tax would apply to all 3 of them. That is correct. And whether having 3 increases the tax base or simply divides a single tax base by 3 remains to be seen.
Well said. Okay. But at least I understand what we're talking about. Mr. Baker, you're on the committee, and then other council members too.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and echo everyone's appreciation of the law department for taking this subject and kind of creating big buckets, because I think it's a big topic and we want to get it right. And I was on the other side of the table when medical came in. I was on planning commission, so I look at these things more from a land use perspective, and I think that's kind of how we should think about it as well. On the inspection side, I would push back slightly in the sense that, at least from our public safety forces, this is a little bit different than just any other use in the city. You're talking about a lot of product that maybe would be more subject to, security issues. And understanding the state has a code about that, and it has strict guidelines about that. But ultimately, our police are the ones who are going to be responding to calls and addressing any issues at that site. Same thing with the fire code and with our fire department. So I would say that there's a little nuance there that I think we should spend a little time working on that is different from a traditional use. On the taxes and fees discussion, I would, and I have worked with the administration on this, and, on the planning commission side, when the medical user, the medical applicants came up, they said, we're fine with this, regulatory structure and fee structure, and then they weren't. And that is what it was. That was 8 years ago, or whatever that was, 9 years ago. But I would caution us generally as a city as we think about this. If you think about state government, when the state of Ohio passed the income tax, they got all the municipal governments to kind of support it because they said, we're going to have local government funds for you. And trust us, we're going to protect your local government funds. And then the Kasich administration comes in and slashes the local government fund, but keeps the income tax. So I'll say, let's make sure that we're thoughtful about that so we protect the city's investment and the city's revenue for what we are, from what that licensee is getting from the city. But I think land use is the most important thing. I think from a drive-through curbside pickup perspective, I think we can fit it within our existing code about drive-throughs, right? We have a pretty restrictive code. There are certain parcels of land, right? If you have a giant parcel on West 117th, maybe a drive-through works there, but in a lot of our neighborhoods it doesn't, and our code is actually pretty prescriptive on that point. So I think we should let the rest of our code drive that decision. The hours, that's really interesting. The 10 a.m. opening, I may be curious to see how the potential operators would feel about that. I see the benefit, but maybe it's something we play with. The number of dispensaries, regulatory capture is something that, I don't think we should be doing from a city government standpoint. But I hear the administration's concern about you don't know who the other operators are. Right now, there's potentially a 1 mile buffer around each operator. I do like maybe a combination of our code right now on the medical side says 1,000 feet from any other operator. I think we should maybe be thoughtful about that because the state regulations could change, right? It could say today it's 1 mile. Maybe in 10 years it's 20 feet, right? Whatever. They could change it. So we should have something locally that, from a land use perspective, again, kind of dictates where these things go from a zoning continuity of uses standpoint. So we may want to have a high level limit of 3 or something, but then also codify some limit that it's a backstop if the state changes theirs, if that makes sense. And I like moving the hours in a zoning code, and then the Planning Commission can grant conditional uses for additional hours, as Assistant Director Swallow said. But I'm excited for this process, and I just asked, I would like the administration to include me on the drafting. I'd love to take a peek at it when you have a version of it and provide comment. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Baker, and I think those are good points about making sure the city rules, regulations, and ordinances, stand up for, codify, and embody the community interest. And so at the moment, we think that's largely going to be overlapping with the state, but to your point, I think we shouldn't count on that forever because the state does change and drive all over the road on some of these questions at times. So, fair point. Other council members? Councilwoman Marks?
Thank you. I'd like to just make a comment about drive-throughs. I don't know how many of you drive down West 117th in the morning by Dunkin' Donut with their drive-through. It's a nightmare on 117th. So I think that's a very important consideration because you can't get down 117th, you can't get into their parking lot. It's a mess. So I don't think that that would be real conducive if it's high traffic for these drive-throughs. So I think that's a very important consideration. That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Strebig, any comments or thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this presentation. It's very informative. Assistant Director Swallow, I would be interested in seeing that map and where those miles overlie, and specifically to look at that map in correlation to where the schools are. When we start to talk about the hours of operation, I think Mr. Vargo, Director Vargo, made a good point about trying to stay away from hours of operation when schools are letting in or coming in or letting out. That would be very interesting to look at. Thank you.
I'll have our GIS tech do that. I'll go ahead and send you the map that I have, but I'll have him do an overlay with the schools so that you can see that as well.
Yeah, and could you share that with everybody and, include it in the record for the minutes of the meeting, I think would be helpful.
I would be happy to.
Thank you. And then Councilwoman Keppel or Councilman Rader, do you have any additional points? Yes, go ahead.
Just a clarifying question is, because I thought does the state speak to, or do we expect the state regulations to speak to the proximity to schools? I'm sorry, 500?
Go ahead, Ms. Baker.
The medical's 500 feet, at least in our code, and we can codify it too here. So right now, as it's on the table, it's 500 feet because we're seeking to put adult use in with medical use, but I don't know if the state is going to have something additional.
The state does currently set it at 500 feet as well.
Okay. Any other questions? I'd like to call at this time one member of the public signed in to speak, Mr. Daniel, and I cannot read the last name, Shaker. Welcome. Please join us, and can you state your name and address for the record and hit till it's green.
My name is Dan Shaker, 33528 Samuel James Lane, Avon, Ohio. I am the general manager for Green Thumb Industries in the state of Ohio. We own and operate 2 dispensaries in Lakewood, one on the east on Madison, 118 in Madison, and the other at on the west on Detroit. It's hard to sit in the. First and foremost, thank you guys for being for allowing us to comment, and thank you for being a good partner. We've operated the medical dispensaries in those 2 locations since 2018 with no safety incidents, no issues about security. It's interesting to sit in the crowd and see you guys trying to have to make decisions without all the information, and I'd like to think I have a little more information than you guys do, but I don't have a ton more than you guys do because we're all waiting for the state to give us the way this thing's going to kind of progress. So what I would like to do is address some of the concerns you guys have, and certainly I'm open for questions as well if you guys have questions that I may be able to answer. So first and foremost, thank you for letting us be a part of the city. We're excited about this. I never thought that I would ever be in front of a city council talking about legalized cannabis. I'm sure you guys, when you ran for your positions, never thought you'd be addressing rules of legalized cannabis. I think it's important for us to kind of recognize that, you know, the world is changing with regards to opinions on what is acceptable and not acceptable. So even seeing the word marijuana, which in and of itself is a derogatory term, we're slowly changing the stigma associated with this. And I think it's important for us to recognize that there are 2 pieces to the business. So yes, we are going to be applying for dual use licenses at both of those locations. Just to give you guys some more information, the split's going to be about 70-30. So of every dollar we make, 70 cents would be adult use and 30 cents would be medically based. We fully intend on catering to our medical patients. We have survived with them for the last 6 years. They are the foundation of the business. They absolutely need the product. It's not recreational in its use at all. It is to them medicine. Unfortunately, today, medical benefits do not cover cannabis. And on top of that, they pay sales tax on top of their medical purchase. So while it's exciting to think about, I don't want anyone to lose sight of the fact that, you know, there are people out there that absolutely have to have this product and other people that just want to have it. The 3 subjects I wanted to cover with you guys was, you know, the limit of dispensaries. I love the setup that we have in Lakewood today. We're literally on the edges of town. And the stats that I can share with you guys is only about 18% of our customer base comes from the city of Lakewood. That leaves a big chunk of people that are coming from outside of the city of Lakewood. We like to believe that, while it does present some problems with regards to traffic, it is very good for the other businesses in the city of Lakewood to get that kind of halo effect from one business. The Planning Commission was gracious enough to listen to our arguments in terms of how many parking spots we needed. As you guys probably know, you're limited to, I think, a 1.5 spots per X feet of square footage of your building. We were able to present the case that we absolutely need more parking than that. We anticipate, you know, I shared some figures with Director Vargo that this business is going to generate somewhere around $40,000 a month for the city of Lakewood in the revenue share program. So his figures are accurate in that you will get 36% of that 10%. I can't promise you that the state's not going to change the game on you. That's not something under my purview, but you know, there are a lot of cities putting moratoriums in place and banning this. And the reality is the city next door is going to allow dispensaries into their town. And they are going to derive all the benefit, and all of the residents of the banning city are just going to drive next door, buy the product, and bring it home. So the moratoriums are a little bit goofy in their logic, I get it. But you know, Rocky River, Westlake, Bay Village, Avon Lake, all of those cities, I don't foresee being an opportunity for a cannabis dispensary to exist. So I congratulate Lakewood for being progressive in thought and taking advantage of the revenue stream and the effect that it's going to have in additional businesses. As far as drive-throughs and curbside, we've done drive-through studies. We did fully intend to put a drive-through in the Madison location. That project is going to be upwards of $2 million for us. I don't know if you guys have driven by, but the Hertz building is officially down. One more eyesore removed. And we're going to do a streetscaping project in there that's going to make that property look 100 times better than it looks today. Trees, parking. And as part of that plan, we do plan on putting parking spots at the front of the building for curbside pickup. So we would really appreciate your strong consideration there. And the math that we've done and what we try to do in operating our business is really about efficiency. This isn't Cheers where Norm comes in and sits at the bar for 5 hours. This is get them in, get them out. The drive-throughs really don't work for us. What you do is just pile up a line of cars, and as Councilwoman Marks mentioned, Dunkin' Donuts is a disaster, and we don't want to have that. So we are interested in having curbside, and what we fully plan on happening is that 60% of our business today comes in via online orders. What we're trying to get done is not only the ordering online, but the payment online. As you guys might know, we're not allowed to take credit cards in cannabis. So we have these goofy debit card systems that seem to change from month to month, but we're hoping that Director of the Cannabis Control, Jim Canepa, is going to allow us to take on a debit card system where we will be able to take payment online and order online. It literally takes our transaction time from 12 minutes down to 2 minutes. They would pull up in the parking spot, we would grab their IDs, verify who they are. All of this is done with the utmost security. I know I invited all of you to attend the dispensary tour, but in our Madison dispensary, there are 55 cameras, and the building's not that big. So we have cameras on the outside, we have cameras on the inside, and again, we've never had a security incident associated with either of our dispensaries with regards to, cash, product. If you haven't been in a dispensary, there's no merchant. You don't grab off the shelf and take it to the counter. What you're doing is walking to the counter, either placing your order there or telling them your name to pick up the order you've already placed online. You can fit a lot of cannabis in 2 small hands. Unfortunately, merchandising is something I don't see happening in cannabis, even though you do see a lot of that in the western states, which are frankly eons ahead of the Midwest and even the East as far as acceptance and merchandising of a dispensary. So, we've done the studies on drive-through. We don't like it, so we didn't push for that into the Madison plan. We would like curbside pickup. I think it's going to help alleviate the traffic situation for us to just be operationally efficient. I know the term kiosk came up. There's no kiosks outside of the store. All of these kiosks will be in the store where you're now just placing an online order inside the dispensary. And as far as extended hours go, I think a lot of you guys talked about it. Like early on, this is going to be a very tough game for us, right? The traffic, as you can imagine, for a product that's been prohibited for so long, and there's such an insatiable demand. I don't know if you've seen some of the figures, but Michigan does about $1.5 billion in cannabis sales. 700 million of it comes from residents of Ohio. We have a dispensary in Toledo, Ohio that sees 20 people a day because it's literally 10 minutes from the Michigan border, and people say, why would I shop here when I can go there? So there's a price deficiency that's happening right now because we are medical only. There are only 165,000 patients in the program today. And as you can imagine, it's hard to build a business with only 165,000 customers. We don't get all those. That's across the whole state. Our TAM, or total addressable market, jumps to about 2 million people because there's about 6 million people in the state that are 21 and over. But just because cannabis is legalized doesn't mean 6 million people are going to step into the space. There's a lot more people buying cannabis today than we actually know, between the black market, the gray market, which is Michigan. All of this is an effort to kind of reel it in. The state of Ohio, most states, honestly, kind of legalize cannabis because they're broke. Ohio, unfortunately, is not making the decision based on money. So I don't know that we're going to get laws that are just pro-cannabis. I think some of the comments coming from Governor DeWine's office are, I don't want Ohio looking like Michigan, so there will be no billboard advertising. The mile buffer you're hearing about, which is real, is as the crow flies. It's not driving along the streets, so it is kind of tough for people to find locations. There are 495 liquor stores in the state of Ohio. There will end up being roughly around 300 cannabis dispensaries when this program is fully built out. And we expect that 2 million person number to grow, but the extended hours are important to us simply because early on the traffic is going to be tough. And, we did make the decision to leave that Detroit location simply because we just could not find a feasible way to make that work. And frankly, I've spoken to Councilman Baker about this as well. You guys are going to be happy that we're leaving Detroit location because that's just a tough area to operate a business that is going to see the sheer number of people that we are going to see. And obviously, there's value associated with having that license, and to have it in an area where we're not extracting the best possible business, it just doesn't work for us long-term. And I think you guys would come to agree once, and we fully intend to open there. It's just going to be very difficult for us to manage that and try not to upset every single neighbor that is doing business there already. So, in summary, I think, this is a great thing for Lakewood, right? I think it's very progressive in thought. Obviously, the revenue stream is nice, but we're trying to do this in a way where people don't notice us. Where if you intend to go to the dispensary, there's not going to be some glowing pot leaf neon sign in front of the building. Most people I talk to and tell them what I do for a living don't even know the dispensaries exist. Obviously, that's going to change with adult use, which we are projecting to start somewhere in mid to late June. And the traffic's going to be there. I mean, right now we see 250 people on a Friday, and we expect that number probably to go 500 to 600 people a day at Madison. If we close Detroit and do this the right way, initially what we're going to try and do is cater to the medical patient at Detroit and try to service the adult use patient at Madison, where there's just frankly a lot more parking. But as I let off in my statement, we are going to just lead our business with the medical patient. They will be treated like they're super duper platinum on marijuana airlines, cannabis airlines. Yeah, I'm guilty of it too. So we have plans in place. We are hiring an additional 20 bodies at each location. We are putting more registers in place. It's just unfortunate that we can't solve the parking problem at the Detroit location like we have at Madison. So
All right.
I don't know if you had any questions.
Mr. Shaker, that was a very helpful presentation. We're over time. I appreciate you giving us the overview from the operator's perspective, and certainly we should probably get some more further in, down practical experience as the successes so far and the anticipated growth hurdles as we go forward. So it was helpful that you were here. We're going to have to wrap up so we can start the full council meeting, but thank you for coming in. So a couple of quick things. One is it sounds like do you have a specific proposal pending before the Planning Commission and the Architectural Board of Review? Is that right?
I think we're through all of the planning
It's
stuff.
complete.
Been approved by both Planning Commission and by Architectural.
All right, so some of this has been helpful because it informs the broader question that this panel, City Council, is considering. Some of that is detail that you've already done a good job of working through with those other bodies that are the decision makers when it comes to a site plan here, parking minimums and maximum, et cetera. So it's good to understand that context. So to the directors from the law department, we don't have final language tonight, so we have to circle back around in the near future, correct?
That is correct. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
And the timing on that is 4 weeks, 6 weeks? What is your guess
Well,
or plan?
Mr. Chair, we believe we can take the comments we heard tonight and the direction that we heard and are sensing and put a pretty near final substitute version and get that out to you. I know Councilman Baker wants it as well, but I think we could get it out to the committee within 7 days.
Okay, thank you. So we'll talk with the council team on schedule and so forth, but that answered the question. So we're going to conclude the meeting without any formal action on the two ordinances on marijuana. And then I just want to briefly say on the resolution regarding the Madison Park Master Plan, there's been some dialogue between some members of the committee and the planning department, and the planning department is working to incorporate some of the comments made by both the planning commission and city council members into that plan. Rather than rush through it tonight, let's plan to come back in 2 weeks. We'll have some more informal dialogue. I think we could maybe have Michelle Nocta share that draft with with all council members, that we all know coming into the next meeting what we're talking about. But it's been a very collegial dialogue. We appreciate it, and we think the plan's going to continue to get stronger still with that work. Okay, thank you to the council president for the extra time. Without objection, Housing Committee is adjourned.
We will take a 2-minute break here just to get reset and start as soon as we can.
Hey, good. See you tomorrow?
Yes.
I'm just reading people. I can't see that far away. I'm like, I'm like, who's up there?
All right, we will call the May 6th meeting of council to order. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now pause for a moment of silence. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Baker.
Here.
Bullock.
Here.
Keppel.
Here.
Marks.
Here.
Rader. Shackner.
Here.
Straybig.
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held April 15th, 2024.
Move to receive and file without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Sorry, I'm all out of it. Okay.
Item 1, report from Committee of the Whole held April 22nd, 2024.
Your colleagues, Committee of the Whole met April 22nd to hear an update from the Planning Department and Casto regarding the downtown development project on Detroit Avenue between Marlow and Bell. Since City Council was last formally briefed on the project in September 2023, Casto has been working closely to finalize a lease agreement with a grocer that is expected to occupy approximately 30,000 to 40,000 square feet of commercial space with a neighborhood market. Director Leininger and Casto expressed optimism that the offerings of the neighborhood market fulfill a market need, activate the mixed-use concept of the space, and achieve the city's original development objectives for the site. The name of the grocer will be announced once a lease agreement is signed. Casto and the Planning Department presented new visuals of the site plan, updated from the previous vision and attached to the communication here, while some changes were made to accommodate the new neighborhood market. The site continues to feature a mix of housing options, public space, and parking. It is estimated that this project could break ground as early as the end of 2024. The committee entered executive session with Casto and the administration to discuss financial aspects of the project that cannot yet be made public. In the interest of time, the committee deferred deliberating on the other legislation on its agenda. Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 2, report from Joint Planning Commission and Housing Planning and Developing Committee, meeting held April 22nd, 2024.
Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues, the Housing Planning and Development Committee held a joint meeting with the Planning Commission on April 22nd to review the Madison Park Master Plan as jointly referred per Resolution 2024-12. Director Leininger opened the meeting by providing some background of the project and introducing Megan Cheney, Senior Planner, Cuyahoga Planning Commission, and also Lakewood resident. Ms. Cheney walked us through a detailed presentation on the development and proposed implementation of the Madison Park Master Plan. And the presentation included a description of demographics and environmental characteristics of the area, details on the community engagement strategies, an overview of the mission, vision statement, and core values, and most importantly, included the plan recommendations and preliminary renderings, as well as a proposed implementation matrix. After her presentation, we heard from residents who expressed support while also raising concerns about pedestrian safety. Following public comment, both the Housing Planning and Development Committee, as well as members of the Planning Commission and other council members in attendance, had the opportunity to ask questions and provide input. Some of the major themes discussed included concerns about safety of the current playground, accessibility of the restrooms, feedback on the proposed addition of a pump track, which is a bicycle course, the need for adequate seating and community-focused amenities, parking and traffic conditions, and overall public safety. Many commented on the creative use of space given the breadth of amenities that the initial renderings managed to incorporate. Overall, both the Housing and Planning and Development Committee and the Planning Commission were supportive of the Madison Park Master Plan in its draft form and expressed their excitement for the plan, vision, and the positive impact that park upgrades will have on the surrounding community. The Planning Commission passed a motion to recommend Resolution 2024-12 to the full council for adoption, and the Housing Planning and Development Committee decided to revisit the plan at our next meeting for further deliberation, which was just held prior to tonight's meeting. And we may well have another chapter of that discussion in 2 weeks' time at the same location. Respectfully submitted, move to receive and file that written report.
Second. Thank you for that detailed report. Motion been made and seconded to receive and file. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 3, Resolution 2024-12, a resolution to take effect immediately to adopt the Madison Park Master Plan.
We will move to defer. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 4, Report from Public Safety Committee meeting held April 29th, 2024.
Councilman Baker.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, the Public Safety Committee met on Monday, April 29th to discuss Ordinance 40-2023, Resolution 2024-22, and Resolution 2024-20. First, the committee discussed Ordinance 40-2023, which addresses amendments to Lakewood codified ordinances regarding the gifting, home-growing, adult use, possession, and abuse of marijuana. Law Director Vargo and Assistant Law Director Swallow were in attendance to review the proposed substitute version of Ordinance 40-2023 and review the new marijuana provisions in the Ohio Revised Code, specifically highlighting areas where ambiguity gives local municipalities further decision-making authority. The committee had a lengthy discussion over the Law Department's proposed Section 513.023 D3, limitations on conducts by individuals. The focus of the discussion was about whether adults should be allowed to use marijuana at outdoor public patios, such as those at bars. Committee members had the opportunity to voice their opinions on the issue. Ultimately, it was decided to maintain the Law Department's proposal prohibiting marijuana use at public outdoor patios. The committee agreed to reconsider this issue in the near future should business owners or residents raise concerns. The committee recommended substitute ordinance 40-2023 to full council for adoption. Next, the committee discussed Resolution 2024-22, which authorized the mayor to enter into an updated agreement for the establishment of the West Shore Council of Governments. Law Director Vargo explained that this updated agreement focuses on the improved transparency, functionality, and governance of the council. Mayor George described changes to the financial modeling for dues payments, which now prioritize the number of residents over property values. She noted the new model has resulted in a slight increase in dues for Lakewood. The committee then discussed ways in which resources could be more efficiently shared amongst member cities, and the committee recommended Resolution 2024 to full council for adoption. The committee then discussed Resolution 2024-20, which proposed increased the impound fees for animals housed at the Lakewood Animal Shelter. Animal Shelter Supervisor Crumley explained the costs were associated with impounding animals, and he stated the increase in impound fees would more effectively cover employee and animal care costs. In anticipation of the potential recommendation from LASWAB, the committee recommended Resolution 2024-20 to full council with the expectation that changes could be made on the floor if necessary. Thank you. And I'll make a motion to receive and file the communication.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Have we heard from LaSwab on this yet? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Motion made and seconded to receive and file. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 5, Substitute Ordinance 40-2023, an ordinance to take effect immediately, provided it receives the affirmative vote of at least 2/3 of the members of council, to amend Sections 513.01, Definitions 513.02, Gift of Marijuana, and 513.03, Drug Abuse and Controlled Substance Possession or Use of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lakewood, and to repeal Section 513.045, Use or Possession of Marijuana Paraphernalia, to make these sections consistent with Chapter 3780, Adult Use Cannabis Control of the Ohio Revised Code.
Move to adopt as substituted.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Just confirming, thank you, Council President, just confirming that the substitute version is the version that Assistant Law Director Swallow sent out to the clerk later, I think it was last week.
That's correct, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. And we're good.
All right. Any further discussion? Councilman Check.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank Chair Baker and also the Law Department for their hard work on this, including our prosecutor. Really took a lot of effort to make this all make sense. Really appreciate that we were able to get this completed before June. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll echo those statements that I appreciate the collaborative work and good explanations that were given in all those hearings, so appreciated.
Actually, I'm getting communication from the clerk that there were a couple minor changes in what Assistant Law Director Swallow sent out on Thursday last week that clean up some minor things associated. So the motion we have before us is not yeah. So we would move to substitute with the new version, which I think is in Granicus.
Okay. So that would be the one that is marked substitute 40-2023 with the JS edits. Is that accurate? Clean.
I know we received an email with some cleanup edits. I don't know what the title of the don't recall what the title of the document is, because there's 3 items in Granicus. One is recommended by committee, one is JS edits, one is final clean.
So an Assistant Law Director Swallow's email on May 2nd, the Chapter 513 Adult Use Marijuana Final Clean is the substitute version that we should make on the floor here.
Okay, got it.
All right, I will amend my motion to substitute the addition sent by Director Swallow and in Granicus as the final clean.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll.
Baker,
Yes.
Bullock,
Yes.
Keppel,
Yes.
Marks,
Yes.
Rader, Shackner,
Yes.
Straybig.
Yes.
All right, and then I will move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Baker,
Yes.
Bullock,
Yes.
Keppel,
Yes.
Marks,
Yes.
Rader,
Yes.
Shackner,
Yes.
Straybig.
Yes.
All right, and that motion passes.
Item 6, 2024-2022, a resolution to take effect immediately authorizing the mayor to enter into an updated agreement for the establishment of the West Shore Council of Governments.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that motion passes.
Item 7, report from Housing, Planning, and Developing Committee meeting held today, May 6, 2024.
Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Madam President. I can keep this brief because everybody was here. The Housing, Planning, and Development Committee met moments ago, and we held thoughtful deliberation on items 8 and 9 on the agenda tonight, which are ordinances, proposed ordinances 41-2023 and 42-2023, which have to do with licensure and permitting for medical and adult use marijuana facilities, and really the point is of new adult use recreational only facilities. We had a discussion about the parameters that city governments are allowed to consider and regulate, and the beginning of a recommendation towards how much or to what degree the city might contemplate regulating the operations on various points. We also heard that the Planning Commission has already recommended to City Council adoption of these ordinances with certain policy recommendations attached having to do with whether or not they're drive-throughs, whether or not there's curbside pickup, the distance and the number of facilities, and the hours of operation. And so after a thoughtful discussion, including we heard from the operator of the 2 existing medical marijuana businesses in Lakewood, we agreed to continue our work at the next meeting, which we think can be imminent. So we anticipate on May 20 we could have another follow-up meeting to hopefully conclude our deliberation of these 2 ordinances. The third thing that was before our committee is item 3 on the agenda tonight, which is the Madison Park Master Plan authorizing resolution. And we also hope and believe that we'll conclude the work by May 20 on that as well. Move to receive and file that oral report.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 8, Ordinance 41-2023, an ordinance to take effect immediately to amend Chapter 779 Medical Marijuana Operations of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lakewood to provide a permitting process for both medical and adult use marijuana dispensaries.
Move to defer. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 9, Ordinance 42-2023, an ordinance to take effect immediately to amend Schedule 1129.02 permitted uses in commercial districts in Chapter 1165 medical marijuana dispensaries of the codified ordinances of the City of Lakewood and to permit medical and adult use marijuana dispensaries in commercial districts.
Move to defer. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 10, report from Public Works and Sustainability Committee held May 6, 2024.
Councilperson Bader.
Thank you, Madam President. The Public Works and Sustainability Committee meeting met today at 5:30. We heard one ordinance, and that was Ordinance 824, which amends sets to amend Chapter 111 of our code, which updates our code around refuse and recycling rules and fees. The purpose, the administration brought this ordinance forward, and the purpose was to, quote, crack down on bad actors, primarily the folks that are coming from other cities to Lakewood to drop off refuse at our refuse facility. Residents, of course, are allowed to drop bulk purchase items at our facility at no charge. This fee schedule is meant to be, I guess, somewhat punitive towards the folks that are abusing those rules and are habitual offenders, and is set to create a burden on them that would hopefully cause them to go take some other course of action instead of using our systems here to drop their garbage. So we had a robust discussion about this. I think during the discussion, a few members, including Member Bullock, Member Baker, mentioned that even looking at sort of what else could be done to deter raising the fees further from what the fee schedule outlined. The administration and council also highlighted that this is a little bit of a change, moving the fee schedule out of the ordinance and referring it to the discretion of the Public Works Director, who then would have to bring that fee schedule before council if he wanted to change, or at least notify council, and council had 60 days to act. If council didn't act, then that fee schedule in the future would go into effect. But they did outline a fee schedule here, and I can actually say what that is here. It is actually cars $50, vans, SUVs $75, and trucks $100. So good, robust discussion, lasted about 45 minutes. We did make a small change to the ordinance, so there's actually going to be a substitute version. We did refer it back, but we are waiting for that substitute version for a subsequent meeting. So potentially the law department should have that ready by the 13th or 20th, depending on when you want to act on that. But certainly during this month, I think the administration does want to get it posted to the website and up and rolling by June. So we'll leave it at that. Thank the administration for bringing this forward. Again, I think we all agree this is a really important step and a good modernization of our code and system. So with that, I will move to receive and file this communication.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 11, Ordinance 08-2024, an ordinance to take effect immediately provided it receives the affirmative vote of at least 2 members of council, amending Chapter 911 Lakewood Incinerator to update the provisions for the operation of the newly opened Refuse and Recycling Center.
Move to defer. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 12, Resolution 2024-27, a resolution to recognize and thank Sean Leininger for his years of leadership and public service as Director of Planning and Development for the City of Lakewood.
I will first move to adopt. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. And then, Danielle, would you mind just reading the resolution?
A resolution to recognize and thank Sean Leininger for his 4 years of leadership and public service as Director of Planning and Development for the City of Lakewood. Whereas prior to being appointed Director of Planning and Development for the City of Lakewood in 2020, Sean Leininger had established an impressive career and a reputation as a top professional in municipal and regional planning. And whereas on July 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Sean Leininger swore his oath of office during one of City Council's historic virtual meetings and quickly got to work leading the city's effort to distribute rental assistance and small business support to those negatively impacted by the pandemic. And whereas since that time, with the support of his incredible staff, Sean has directed and overseen a dizzying number of projects, plans, programs, and initiatives, including replacement of Foster Pool, updating multiple city parks, institutionalizing public art and traffic calming, developing the Climate Action Plan, the ADA Transition Plan, the Active Transportation Plan, the Madison Park Master Plan, among others. And whereas, in addition to his approachable and collaborative attitude, Sean's unique ability to understand the big picture of any given city project while simultaneously prioritizing its minute details has earned him the highest respect and esteem of his staff, colleagues, and members of council. And whereas Sean's legacy of leadership and excellence will carry on at City Hall thanks to his robust investment in the ongoing mentorship and professional development of the planning department team, by whom he will be greatly missed. And whereas Sean's creative and thoughtful approach to city planning has and will continue to positively impact the city's built environment and strategic outlook for decades to come, and significantly influence the way in which today's residents and future residents experience the city, be it resolved by the City of Lakewood, Ohio, that this council recognizes and thanks Mr. Sean Leininger for his 4 years of public service and achievements as Director of Planning and Development for the City of Lakewood. That this council bids farewell to Mr. Leininger and wishes him and the entire Leininger family all the best in the next chapter of their lives in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Sorry, Sean, but we really do. I'll speak for myself first, and then I'll open up to colleagues. But you know, you really will be missed very much here, and the work. It was putting this together was hard to almost limit the number of things on this resolution for everything that you've done for our city, and a lot of the things that people think of as sort of, in addition to having all the great skill set with economic development, with planning, is a lot of the things people think of as soft skills of the communication, collaboration, critical thinking, working together, growth mindset, just being really, you know, building together is just going to be really hard to not have you here. And I'm sure your successor will be great, but we really have appreciated you here. And it's very apparent that you truly care about the work that you do for the residents of Lakewood and with us. So thank you for everything. All right, discussion, colleagues. Vice President Schechner.
Thank you. And stating that he was sworn in during COVID and our virtual meetings kind of reminds me of the first time I actually got to meet Director Leininger in person. And it's pretty much remarked about how tall he was and how average height I am, which is not very apparent on video. But I do want to thank Director Leininger. He was great to work with. We got some pretty big things done. Accessory dwelling units, of course, is one of those big things. And just the way you handled public input, especially through the Foster Pool plans and renovations. That was not an easy thing for a director to do, and he was always there for his staff, especially when people do not necessarily approve of certain plans, usually a vocal minority, but was able to work with those people and create a final pool plan that I think everybody could agree has been successful. It's not easy. It's rare you find somebody that is competent and well liked. It's usually one or the other, and you happen to have both. So you will be missed, and just want to thank you again. I think we're better for knowing you, and Lakewood is better because you worked here. So thank you.
Councilman Baker.
Thank you, Council President. And Director Leininger, we worked a little bit together in our lives before Lakewood. So always, I knew you as a professional. On the other side of the table, I know you as a colleague. And actually, I looked back I may have been your first meeting when you got the job. It was July 6th, so it was 2 weeks before you were sworn in at City Council on Planning Commission. I was chair of Planning Commission, and we sat and had coffee at Blackbird and talked about, we were having lots of kind of special meetings through Planning Commission for outdoor dining and, you know, to deal with the effects of COVID. And I don't know if, you know, the average Lakewood citizen appreciates how a lot of cities separate economic development and planning, and we don't. And so basically everything under the sun that isn't, you know, police, fire, or public works is kind of on you. And it's a hard job. It's two different sets of skills. You did it incredibly well. And there is no, you know, your public service to the city of Lakewood and your previous roles will never be forgotten by me. It's made our city better. I'm just jealous that you're going back to South Carolina. But it has been an honor working with you in situations where it is easy to get frustrated or even lose your cool slightly. I've never seen you do that. So you must rage scream on your way home from work or something, but you've always been cool, calm, and collected. And I've always appreciated that, because when the public is giving input and you're calm and you take their input and you consider it and you tell them that it's valid input, but there's obviously a decision that has to be made, they feel respected. And everyone who's ever dealt with you has felt respected. And I just want to say I appreciate that on behalf of myself and also the residents of Lakewood. So thank you.
Councilman Reeder.
Great. I got to follow that. Thank you. I echo all of that. I think particularly the, well, I say this a lot. I say it a lot privately. Maybe I shouldn't say it publicly. I want to say it anyway. I tell everybody that the administration made a lot of great moves in the beginning. Two of the greatest moves the mayor made were hiring you and then quickly hiring Chief Story in the back. I say that a lot. Of course, many good decisions, but I mean, I think having somebody of your caliber here at the city of Lakewood really raised the standard across the board. And I think that's what a new administration needed, was somebody to come in and really set the tone and vision and say, we're going this direction now, and do it in a way that was so incredibly respectful and nice to just everybody. And you were on the ground. You were at every single community meeting that had anything to do with planning. It wasn't somebody else. It was you. You were there. You were there to take people's notes and get back to them, and just your organization too is something that is laudable and something that I'm hoping we can try to replace. It's going to be, I think, impossible to replace you, but you know, we'll do our best, and I really appreciate all the time and energy you've given to this place that we love so much. Thank you.
Councilwoman Marks.
Thank you, Director Leininger. I have to say that it's been quite a pleasure working with you. You have tremendous responsibility. I don't think people in the city really recognize, as Mr. Baker commented, the responsibilities of your job. And rarely have I seen somebody that has managed that responsibility with such grace and dignity, and I just respect you so much for that. I'm going to miss you terribly, but I will let everybody know on council that you invited us all down for August break to Hilton Head. We'll miss you, but I'm excited for this new adventure in your life. But you've been a joy to work with, and I'm proud that you were here in Lakewood at such pivotal times when we needed your expertise. Thank you for being so committed to us.
Councilwoman Streben.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, President. Well, our time together has been quite short, but I wanted to say your professionalism and your planning has meant the most to me, and the short time when we've met together, and your explanation of your processes and your communication. I greatly appreciate that. So I want to thank you again and echo everyone here for your commitment to our city and our citizens and all of our neighbors here in Lakewood that will continue to benefit from the plans that you have laid. Thank you very much.
Councilman Bullock.
I wouldn't stand pat when there's a chance to speak. So, Sean, thank you for your unflappable professionalism through all these years. I agree with what others have said, that whether it's a stressful meeting or a conflict meeting or just a late night where there's a lot of work to do and more work to do tomorrow, you've been a model for keeping it steady and keeping it professional and always giving people a fair hearing and a fair shake. And that really, I think, has made the decision-making process better. It's made for a cornerstone of collaboration between this body and all of you, the City Council and the administration, because that's been a basis for us to share ideas and workshop them and try to volley the ball back and forth in service of the community. So a lot's been accomplished during your service with a great team. Several are here with you now. I think that you've also been a force multiplier for other departments too, because the planning department tends to be the special forces of all new creative initiatives. And so I imagine that your colleagues on this level of the meeting have similar things to say. So thank you for helping to make, I think, a wonderful city achieve a little bit more every year of its best values and its visions of what we could be. There's always more work to do, but you know, if there was a slugging average, you'd be well into the 600s. So thank you for your service and keep at it.
Thank you. Director Langer, I don't know, after we've just embarrassed you, if you want to talk or not, but you're welcome to say a few words.
I don't want to talk because I don't, as you know, I don't like the spotlight, and I've kept my composure for this long, but just thank you for everything. It's greatly appreciated. Lakewood's a great community. I'm only as good as the team that I have behind me, and I have a really great team. There's a great team here that's in front of you, but the faces you don't see every day here on Monday nights, with starting just with Dave's here this evening, but there's a whole group of them downstairs that's why you get to say a lot of, I think, embellished words, but appreciated words, because it's a reflection on them. And there's probably only one place that could call, and I would say yes and go back to. And as you know, I spent 5 great years down there before, so the opportunity to go back, it's something my family and I just couldn't pass up. And in a sense, it's going home. Not that we didn't feel that way here in Lakewood or in Avon Lake where we had called home, but that was a special place for us, and I hope you keep a lot of the great things that we got started going, and I'll be watching from a distance, cheering you on. So, thank you.
Thank you. So, if you're up for it, we do have a ceremonial resolution for you. We'd love to get our traditional picture. Okay, we were on the discussions. First, let's do the vote. So we have a motion and a second to adopt. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion.
Item 13, communication from council members Strabig, Marks, and Keppel regarding Human Rights Campaign Municipal Equality Index.
Councilmember Strubig.
Thank you, President Keppel. Dear colleagues, as June quickly approaches and plans for Pride celebrations begin, we must continue to work towards building an inclusive community. By supporting our neighbors with the resources and care that they need, we can help the LGBTQ+ community fully participate and thrive in Lakewood society. For 40 years, the Human Rights Campaign has led the way toward equality for the LGBTQ+ community through their mission. By inspiring and engaging individuals and communities, the Human Rights Campaign strives to end discrimination against LGBTQ+ people and realize a world that achieves fundamental fairness and equality for all. HRC envisions a world where lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, plus community members who use different language to describe identity, are ensured equality and embraced as full members of society at home, at work, and in every community. Now in its 12th annual edition, HRC's Municipal Equality Index rates American cities on 49 criteria and provides a blueprint toward greater inclusivity. Lakewood was first included in the MEI in 2016 with a score of 77. And through the work of past and present city leaders and staff, that score has increased over the years to reach a high of 96 out of the maximum score of 100 points on the MEI. We are grateful for everyone who has brought us this far and are excited to explore ways to further expand inclusivity and fully maximize our score, such as with the following remaining point categories: non-discrimination laws, single occupancy all gender restrooms, municipality as employer, employee resource group, employee training, and a recruitment program through the Human Resources Department. Municipal services to LGBTQ+ youth, people experiencing homelessness, older adults, people living with HIV or AIDS, and the transgender community. Municipal services, youth bullying prevention policy for all city services and the Community Recreation and Education Department. A great need for tolerance, support, and understanding is critical to the goal of treating everyone with dignity and respect. We respectfully request this communication be referred to the Health and Human Services Committee for further discussion on these important initiatives. Myself, President Keppel, and Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. I'll move to refer to the Health and Human Services Committee.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Councilwoman Marks. I'll take that promotion, sure. Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll just add my thanks to Councilwoman Strubig for bringing this forward, and also to the administration for the work that has been done so far. Last year, I believe, was our highest year ever on the index, and being open to having these conversations, doing this work. So it's, while the motion is to refer to Health and Human Services Committee. A lot of these will touch on multiple departments, and we don't have a HR committee, so I'm sure we'll be inviting you, Claudia, to join us. So thank you for your work also. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, on the motion to refer to Health and Human Services Committee, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 14, communication from President Keppel regarding August recess.
Dear colleagues, this communication serves to propose a recess from Council's regularly scheduled general meetings for the month of August. Barring extenuating circumstances, I encourage committee chairs to also refrain from scheduling committee meetings during the month of August. An August recess has been part of Council's customary schedule over the years, and one that I believe results in members returning to the dais refreshed and refocused on our legislative work together. In accordance with LCO 121.03C, I intend to call a vote on the question of recessing from the August 5th, 2024 and August 19th, 2024 general meetings of Council. First, I'll move to receive and file that communication. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. No one's telling me that they are opposed to this idea. No. Okay. Although I will point out, ironically, that when I was first appointed to council, I suggested that we did not take an August recess because it was right at the height of the pandemic. So I feel kind of bad doing that today, but not taking it myself. Yeah.
Councilman, the only one, slight amendment is if there's anything related to the redevelopment of the former Lakewood Hospital site but that's my only comment.
Correct. Yeah. So, barring that, I would consider that one of the extenuating circumstances for sure. And I believe last year, the year before, we came back for one special meeting in August, and we could certainly do that if need be. Hopefully, everything will be all set without that. So, okay. So, motion's been made and seconded to receive and file this communication. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. And then, Clerk Bach, do I go ahead and call for that vote now on the? Okay. So I will move to recess from our August 5th and August 19th, 2024 general meetings of Council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 15, communication from Councilmember Rader regarding the 2024 tree giveaway.
Councilmember Rader.
Thank you. I won't read this verbatim. Usually we have a little space at the end of the meetings to do this kind of stuff, but I thought this is a little more important, and I wanted to just highlight this and both thank the administration for working with, and thank our partners in this, the Tree Advisory and Education Board, and Member Keppel, who was serving on the board when you put this idea together. I'm now serving on the board in her stead. But it was a fantastic event on Saturday, April 27th. Gave away 100 trees this year. They were actually allocated within hours of the going live on the website, and we were able to give all 100 away. If you want to scroll to the pictures, this is the next slide to show sort of some of what it looked like there. It was great. I think the board wants to do this again, and again, I just really wanted to take a moment here to thank all the members of the tree board. Had almost 20 folks show up there to help give these trees away. First event of its kind. They want to make it annual. They want to actually do it twice a year and do 200 trees in September. And I've already gotten comments and calls from other places in the state wanting to do this, and been sending them to the Arbor Day Foundation to get hooked up and do the same thing. So Lakewood, again, leading the way, a great way to accomplish our really aggressive goals in trying to replenish our tree canopy here in the next few years. So again, thanks to all partners who made this possible. Brand new thing. Great job organizing it, and just kudos. So that's all. Move to receive and file that communication. Thank you, Madam President.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I don't know if Councilman Rader's made it so it'd be across the street from his house, but no, that's great.
Very convenient.
Doing part for the environment, no commuting necessary.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Actually, I will one more thing, though. I actually carried 3 trees to people's houses in the neighborhood, which is kind of cool. So, I mean, it's walkable. It was a great place to do it. Maybe next year or later we'll do it in Madison. People can walk to there and get it. So, but thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. And I'll just also express my appreciation to the Tree Advisory and Education Board and the administration for partnership on this. This is such a great program where residents can actually use the Arbor Day software, take a look at their own property, how big the tree would grow, see the different varieties, get that information ahead of time so they know it's going to be a success, and really help grow our tree canopy on private property, which is an area where we talked a lot about on Tree Advisory and Education Board, and it's a great way to encourage that. So excited to see the success. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none on the motion to receive and file, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 16, communication from Mayor George regarding mayoral appointment to the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Mayor George.
Dear Council President Keppel and members of City Council, it's my pleasure to appoint the following to the Citizens Advisory Committee: Edward Peppers, Dan McCown, and Garrett Oster. I'm grateful for these individuals for their willingness to volunteer to this very important advisory committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to receive and file. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Our thanks to these individuals for serving. All right, on the motion to receive and file, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 17, communication from Mayor George regarding mayoral reappointments to the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Mayor George again.
Dear Council President Keppel and members of City Council, it's my pleasure to reappoint the following individuals to the Citizens Advisory Committee: Gail Davis, Sarah Hammer, Joe Walsh, Christine Alexander, and Kevin Roach. And very much appreciate their willingness to be reappointed to the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Move to receive and file. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 18, communication from Police Chief Fisher regarding National Police Week during the week of May 12th through May 18th, 2024.
Chief Fisher.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear Council President Keppel and members of Council, following my correspondence is a resolution for your consideration proclaiming the week of May 12th through May 18th, 2024 as National Police Week. Established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962 and later signed by President John F. Kennedy, National Police Week was established to coincide with National Peace Officers Memorial Day, which had been officially designated by President Kennedy as May 15th. National Police Week pays special recognition to law enforcement officers who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, laying down their lives in the line of duty in service and protection of others. In 2023, law enforcement agencies around the United States lost 137 officers to line of duty deaths. Police Week affords us the opportunity to honor our fallen brothers and sisters and provides all citizens the opportunity to recognize the sacrifices law enforcement officers make to ensure the safety and protection of all. On behalf of the entire Lakewood Police Department, I'd like to thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 19, Resolution 2024-28, a resolution recognizing the week of May 12th, 2024 as Peace Officer Memorial Week in the City of Lakewood.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? I'll just say thank you for bringing this forward, Chief Fisher, and certainly, we're proud to recognize it and appreciate your service and the service of your fellow members.
Thank you very much, and on behalf of the Police Department, thank Council for your support.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded to adopt. All those in favor? Aye. And opposed? And that motion passes. And we do have a ceremonial resolution for you, Chief, so if you want to come down, we can get a picture.
Item 20, communication from Police Chief Fisher regarding the establishment of a microchip program at the Lakewood Animal Shelter.
Chief Fisher.
Thank you again, Madam President. Dear Council President Keppel and other members of council, following my correspondence is a resolution that, if adopted, would establish a microchipping program of animals through the Lakewood Animal Shelter. The shelter does not currently offer microchipping as a service when an animal is adopted out. By microchipping an animal, we can more likely ensure a quick and seamless return to its rightful owner in the event that the animal is found at large or is turned into the shelter. The Lakewood Animal Shelter also requests that the fee for microchipping be set at $20, which is at or below what other agencies in the region charge for this service. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm willing to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 21, Resolution 2024-29, a resolution to take effect immediately, provided it receives the vote of at least 5 members of council, to enact a fee for microchipping cats and dogs at the Lakewood Animal Shelter.
Move to refer to LaSwab and Public Safety.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Councilman Marks, I'm afraid I missed you before.
Just want to thank you, Chief, for initiating this. It's something that LSWAB is really looking forward to, and our citizens in Lakewood will really benefit from this service. So thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilman Rader.
Thank you. I would like to also note my support for this. This is just a great program, great price too. So well done on that. And I think it's something we've often used to talk about on LastWeb when I was serving on it. And I'm not sure if I will, or I don't know when this meeting is going to be scheduled for public safety, but in case I miss it, just want to register my support of this, and I think it's a great move, so thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? I'll just add my appreciation, and there seems like there's been good communication and conversations recently with LaSwab and working on these things together, so I'm excited about that. Also, we adopted our cat Henry from the Lakewood Animal Shelter and had to pay a lot more than this to get him microchipped afterwards, so I appreciate it. All right, so we have a motion and a second to refer to LaSwab and Public Safety. On that motion, all in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 22, communication from Assistant Law Director Swallow regarding settlement of Bureau of Workers' Compensation claim.
Director Vargo.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear Council President Keppel and members of City Council, attached, please find a resolution authorizing a $30,000 Bureau of Workers' Compensation settlement between the city and a current employee. The proposed settlement includes 2 separate work-related medical issues. The settlement is subject to Council's approval under LCO 12703. The Law Department respectfully asks the Council refer the matter to the appropriate committee for discussion of the proposed terms. Questions regarding the reasons or basis for the settlement would be appropriate for executive session under ORC 121.22. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 23, Resolution 2024-30, a resolution to take effect immediately, authorizing the mayor or director of law to enter into an agreement with a current employee to pay $30,000 in settlement of pending Bureau of Workers' Compensation claims.
Move to refer to Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 24, communication from Public Works Director Gordon regarding trade-in tow motor for purchase of new tow motor.
Director Gordon.
Thank you. Dear President Keppel and members of City Council, attached is legislation that, if adopted, will allow the Public Works Department to trade in our current tow motor towards the purchase of a new tow motor. The current tow motor is a 2002 Toyota 7 FGU 15, and the new tow motor will be a 2024 Toyota 50 8 FGU 15. ProLift Toyota Material Handling has offered the city a trade-in value of $3,000 towards the purchase of a new tow motor. Research showed this trade-in value to be acceptable. I request that City Council approve and pass the attached legislation on first reading so that the trade-in purchase may proceed as soon as possible. Please let me know if you have any further questions.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 25, Resolution 2024-31, a resolution to take effect immediately, authorizing the Director of Public Works or Director of Finance to sell through trade-in a 2002 Toyota 7FGU15 tow motor toward the purchase of a 2024 tow motor.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? None? Cool. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes.
Item 26, communication from Building Commissioner Parmalee regarding Building Safety Month.
Oh, he's here. Commissioner Parmalee. You just didn't want to have to be in the pictures.
Madam President, members of council, Division of Housing and Building would like to participate in ICC's Building Safety Month for the 5th year in a row. Campaign raises awareness about critical building issues from structural integrity to energy conservation. This year's campaign is Mission Possible. Each week of the month is highlighted with an essential topic. The ICC model codes are adopted by Ohio, altered to meet our specific region, then enforced through all 88 counties. We're planning a no cost to the city campaign with each week's topic featured on our Housing and Building webpage as well as social media. ICC International Code Council is made up of 64,000 members, including the staff of the City of Lakewood Building Department. We all work together to improve the community with inspections and knowledge to ensure the structures are safe to work, live, and play. We would greatly appreciate your support in Building Safety Month, May 2024. Respectfully, Christopher Parmalee.
Thank you. I will move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 27, Resolution 2024-32, a resolution declaring May 2024 Building Safety Month within the City of Lakewood.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? And Commissioner Parmalee, we appreciate you leading this off for us again this year, and always great tips coming out for that. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 28, liquor notice, Seahorse LLC at 12401 Madison Avenue.
And I believe we received the report on this. Law Department, no statutory reason to object. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam President.
Okay. Councilwoman Marks.
No reason to object.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 29, liquor notice, Aqua Bar Lakewood LLC at 13324 Madison Avenue.
And Director Vargo, do you want to just give us a quick little update on this?
Sure. Thank you. The applicant, as we indicated before, in the license application, well, during the investigation by police, indicated that it was not certain the applicant would actually use the license at that location. The applicant technically is authorized to use it at that location, and if so, there's no statutory reason to object. So that's why we recommend that there be no objection. We are assured by the Department of Liquor Control that if the applicant chooses to use the license at a different address, a different location, then the department will re-regulate that issue and resubmit it to the city for investigation of that location. So given that, we see no reason to object to the original application. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that summary. This is Ward 3, Councilwoman Strebig. Any comment?
No objections.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move to file without objection. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. All right, we're at the end of our agenda. Do we have public comment? We have our e-comment software is down currently, so unfortunately we only have in-person comment at the moment. Oh, good. All right. Mr. Organ, you're back up. You know the drill.
Hey, I'm Robert Organ. I live at 14513 Bays. I didn't plan on talking tonight, but it's like, I don't know, somebody says parking 3 times and I just have to appear. So we talked about during the Jazz Cabbage conversation, we were discussing the prospect of drive-through and curbside pickup, and I couldn't get through tonight without coming up and saying how objectionable that would be to me and probably everybody else within Bike Lakewood. I wish the gentleman was still here, but he left. He made some really great points. It's unlikely that many of our neighbor cities will be permitting any kind of dispensaries. So that's going to mean that Lakewood, by default is going to be a destination for people to come in and get their goods. The streets that we have currently are already chaos with pickup and Angelo's and all these businesses that I always talk about. People come in, they park in spots that are not legal parking spots, and they're just running in for a few minutes. I don't know if the police department is just unable to react quickly enough, or if they don't have the resources to send an officer or whatever. I call these into the not emergency line pretty frequently. But with Lakewood being the only place for dispensaries on the near west side, that's going to be ramped up pretty significantly. People are going to be coming in and parking for 5 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it might be. It's dangerous for pedestrians, it's dangerous for cyclists, and it's honestly dangerous for drivers as well as they're pulling in and pulling out. Additionally, if we're encouraging people to come and drive by making drive-throughs and things like that legal, even before the state passed this law, it was already pretty commonplace to see people driving under the influence or using Jazz Cabbage while they're driving, and that's obviously not kosher. But it's incredibly difficult to enforce that unless it's been spotted by an officer or something like that. I just think that driving for pickup, making it convenient for people to drive, is going to increase that as well, which is a safety issue. So as this issue is further legislated, I hope that you all reconsider or strongly discourage quick driving runs to pick up a substance that we all know is going to be in high demand and reduces people's ability to drive safely. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then we have Josh Motor.
Josh Matur, so 1520 Cohasset Avenue. Just have a quick statement for council. So, dear City Council and Mayor George, as many of you know, 2 weeks ago there was an unfortunate accident involving a cyclist being targeted and injured by a vehicle. This serves as a poignant reminder of the urgent need for enhanced safety measures for cyclists and pedestrians in our city. Long-standing road design principles currently prioritize traffic throughput over public safety and do not meet the standards of Ohio's most walkable and bikeable city. Improvements in infrastructure can reduce or eliminate traffic injuries and fatalities that result from traffic mistakes, as I'm sure you all know because you all passed the Active Transportation Plan and Safe Streets for All plan. It's crucial to acknowledge that relying solely on traffic safety education and behavioral intervention has proven ineffective in preventing accidents such as the one that occurred 2 weeks ago. While education is important, we urge you to prioritize swift implementation of the strategy outlined in the plans that I mentioned before. Infrastructure improvements are essential to ensure the safety and well-being of all road users and to promote a more sustainable and inclusive transportation system. We extend our thanks in advance to the Planning Department for hosting the Bunts Road Rehab Open House tomorrow night. We appreciate your hard work, and we look forward to the opportunity to preview the options for making this high-impact corridor safer. And finally, we want to thank Officer Emer, I might be pronounced Emer, sorry, and Detective Patton for their response to and handling of the incidents that I referenced. Their service is greatly appreciated. We look forward to continued cooperation with all of the city's officials to pursue the goal of safe streets in Lakewood.
Thank you. All right. No further public comment. Announcements from council members? Councilman Baker.
I believe next week is Hike and Bike Week for, and the planning department has put a lot of effort into it, along with Bike Lakewood. I think Councilman Bullock is going to be doing his best at Lincoln to promote it, but it's essentially, it's kind of PTA specific, but the city is trying to put a bigger kind of infrastructure behind it so we can encourage more students to either do a walking school bus or walk or bike to school, to put a little bit more of a system behind it. So I'll just highlight that it is May 13th, May 17th, as the sign indicates.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further announcements? As the sign says. Also, announcements from the administration? No? All right. No further business. I will move to adjourn. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned.